I was being crushed. I didn't have the resources that these guys had, and I couldn't even compete with the money that they were giving back because it didn't make sense. They were willing to lose money to get a small guy out before he could even grow, and that really it motivated me. Really, it motivated, but at the same time, it was crushing me.
Hey there, Jeff Barnes here again with Angels, Exits, and Acquisitions podcast. And during today's show, I interview Simar Bedi, who is talking about an incredibly cool, innovative technology and idea for a very old problem that we have and everybody deals with every single day. We're going to be talking a little bit about plastic straws at the end. So stick around, stay tuned, watch this episode because it's an incredible opportunity you guys are going to want to keep your eye on. They're looking for an IPO here in the near future, and I think that they are absolutely going to crush it in the near future. So again, my name is Jeff Barnes. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe, like, and share this podcast with your friends. And let's let everybody know how they can get involved with Angels, Exits, and Acquisitions podcast. Take care.
Welcome to Angels, Exits, and Acquisitions, the place to learn how to fund, scale, exit, and massively profit as an angel investor or entrepreneur. Brought to you by the Angel Investors Network. And now, here's your host, Jeff Barnes.
Hello and welcome back again to another episode of Angels, Exits, and Acquisitions. My name is Jeff Barnes. I'm your host today. And today we are talking to Simar Bedi at Soul Recycling. Samar, how are you doing today?
Good, Jeff. Very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. So, I saw you guys on my calendar and saw you guys line up for the podcast here. And I had a chance to go check out your website and learn a little bit more about what you're doing. Looks really cool. But why don't you tell everybody who's listening what it is your guys' company does, and then let's talk about why in the world you even decided to start this.
Yeah. So a little bit about Soul Recycling. We're approaching 10 years old, and we're a strictly recycling company. We have no association with any sort of waste companies at all. We're not landfill associated. So when you call us, you're calling a recycling company, and the purpose of our company is to educate businesses and consumers that waste. When you see waste, you should think recycling first rather than calling a waste company to take care of your recyclables.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's talk about that a little bit, Samar. When you talk about companies that are thinking about waste, right? And you have to talk about what kinds of waste specifically. But I remember in third grade, we were talking about Save the Planet, right? This is decades ago now for anybody who wants to date me here. But, back then, recycling was this really big thing. We thought, we literally were told practically everything could be recycling at some point, right? And then there was this wake-up call on the way that, hey, maybe recycling isn't what we thought it was. And how should it be done? Because a lot of the stuff, if I'm not mistaken, there's a big percentage of things that people put in recycling that still don't even end up being recycled. Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of wish cycling happening, my friend. The reason why I'm finding it's, again, like I mentioned before, that people are calling waste companies, and their biggest investment is in landfills. We're talking billions of dollars, right? So will they find a resource for that peanut butter jar with peanut butter still in it? No, right? So that's wish cycling. It's going to landfill. So it's kind of the sense of out of sight, out of mind, which is the wrong way of thinking of it. We're literally digging a hole in the ground, putting everything in there and wish it'll go away one day. And as you know, with landfills, if you dig deep enough and long enough, you'll hit water. So our waterways are getting contaminated as well. And I know in Asia, they're dumping right into the ocean, but here we're kind of doing the same thing, right? We're just doing it by digging a hole. So that's the purpose, right? To eliminate the idea of landfills. It should not be our solution. So that's our whole mission here at Soul Recycling. So to your point, wish cycling is a big problem, but it's a problem for waste companies. It's not a problem for recycling companies. So if the consumer, like right now we're B2B, we're business only, we're trying to get into cities, but there's such big lobbyists from waste companies in the cities that we're having a hard time to even get through to the right person. Right. But so that's why we're doing podcasts, right? So we could get down to the consumer. And so then the consumer could demand a solution. And we're here a part of the solution. So that's why we're doing this, Jeff. Like, that's why we connected. That's why I'm going on podcasts and radios and things like that to say, hey guys, there's a solution to this problem. You're just talking to the wrong person about the solution.
So how did you even get started in this? What was the thing? Because this isn't something somebody wakes up, in the morning, like, you know what I want to do? Start a recycling plant. Sounds like a great idea. Like, how'd you get into this?
Yeah. So as a child, like just like you, grade 3, probably around the same age, and we've been brainwashed that recycling is everything. And then when you grow up, you realize it's not, right? It's not what it was all made out to be. And so I was always interested in that aspect. But how it started, it was my dad owned a printing company.
Okay.
And he was throwing tons of paper out, like just as the machines would operate, like the cuttings, and then all the paper was going into the garbage, essentially, because for businesses in Canada at that time, there was no recycling bin per se. This is back like 15 years ago. And so I'm like, there can't be, right? We're recycling this newspapers at home and magazines at home and all this print at home, but we can't do it for a business. So I got to it as a first generation immigrant child. You're very resourceful because you want to save your family business some money, right? So I got to Google, of course, and I found out, how do you even recycle paper? How is it recycled? And I found out a bunch of articles saying that a lot of scrap paper is becoming insulation, like your home insulation. Then did some more digging, found the manufacturer of that insulation, called them up, said, hey, we have this much tonnage of paper that we produce out of Canada in Mississauga. Are you interested? They go, yes, we are. This is how much we could pay you. And I was blown away that the fact that they're going to pay us for it. Right. So I thought we were going to pay them for it.
Nice.
And they're like, no, we'll pay you for it. And then right there, soul recycling. I started basically overnight.
That's genius. And it's so funny too, because, people don't even think about this. Now I got to tell a story real quickly, because a long time ago, when it seems like a long time ago right now, it was about 2001, 2002. I decided I didn't want to be in the Navy anymore. I'd had enough. And at some point I wanted to get out. I wanted to start a business, but I had no idea what business to start. And so I started learning about everything you could learn about. The very first business I learned about that I tried starting, never went anywhere because I found out it was really hard, was waste management contracting. Because I didn't realize, just like you did, that there's different places. You can actually contract waste companies, recycling companies. You can repurpose things. And if you get good at contracting that, you can actually make a little bit of money just by putting the buyers with the sellers, right? I never did anything with it. I was actually terrible at it because I was terrified to talk to anybody back then. But, that's kind of what you did, right? You found there was a problem. Here's an issue that we're dealing with right now. I don't like this issue. And there's somebody else that could use this. And I love the fact that, how old were you at that time? Were you a teenager at the time, preteen?
I was probably like 24.
Okay, so all right, so you're 24, all right. So at that point, you're like, okay, cool. I didn't even know I could get paid to do this. And then you saw an opportunity in the market. That's really cool. I think a lot of people, we almost try to force products, services, and solutions into the market. And you just happen to find that there was this opportunity and decided to make a business out of it.
That's it. So now from there, we branched out to plastic, metal, all in the same fashion too. Remember our purpose, because what I find with our competitors, like in recycling, because we're not the only recycling company, right?
Sure.
The one of the other misconceptions when I would go to businesses saying, hey, let's put a recycling program in, and this is what it would entail. These are the type of machines that we have to put in and things like that. They go, oh, no, we tried this before, and it ended up costing us more money than throwing it into the landfill. And what we did on our side is we found a resource for every type of material that they would waste. So, for example, we worked with this large bottling plant. It's one of the big names out there that you see everywhere. Like it's, I can't say names, but it's in everybody's hand, right? And they were spending millions in disposing of plastic bottles annually. So we're talking Canada-wide here, east to west. They're spending millions in disposing plastic bottles because they couldn't recycle it, because there's a label, there's a cap, then there's, the bottle itself. It's all different materials. So it's very tough to recycle bottles. So we found a partner in Dubai. What they were doing with the PET bottles, they're putting into the roads. And the roads, because Dubai is so hot, the additive of PET made it more heat resistance, and their roads were more durable and longer lasting over time. And so we market that worldwide. And what we ended up doing is paid the bottling company for their once upon a time garbage, and we ended up paying them. So the opposite happened. They were spending millions to dispose of it, and they ended up making millions, right? Because we did a profit share in that project. So we ended up doing 100 containers of PET bottles to Dubai, and everything was diverted from landfill.
That's very cool. So, again, it's an innovative idea on an old problem. And this is something that, from an investor's perspective, you look at that, you're like, this is great because it's not necessarily what we call blue ocean strategy, right? We're not looking at something that maybe 3 to 5 years down the road, if we're lucky, it'll get mass adoption. We're talking about something that it's a real need, it's a real problem right now, and you can start making money. And you guys did start making money at it right away, right?
Yep. Yeah. Not right away. Like any business, we were struggling for the first 5 years. And I'm going to tell you a little story about that. So when I started the business, everything was going well for the first 2 years. And then after my second year, I started losing clients left, right, and center. And I had to find out what's going on. And all these guys are shifting into waste companies. Like they're changing our services to a waste company. And what happened was a lot of waste companies in Ontario felt threatened by us. And they started undercutting, and they started paying for material as well, started copying the idea. But they weren't even recycling. They were just trying to crush us after about 2 years of business. So I was being crushed. I didn't have the resources that these guys had. And I couldn't even compete with the money that they were giving back because it didn't make sense. They were willing to lose money to get a small guy out before he could even grow. And that really, it motivated me, really. It motivated, but at the same time, it was crushing me financially. Right. And I had to seek out private lending, and I had to refinance my house. I had to do so many things after the second year to survive to my fifth. And then my fifth year, what I ended up doing, I made synergistic partnerships with other recyclers that are facing the same type of problem. Right. And I made these partnerships with all the guys in Ontario. It's our state/province. It's actually a province, but and we came together really to compete, right? Mm-hmm. To be as the little ants in front of what are these? The elephant's scared of the mouse, right? And we were a bunch of mouses, so we became the size of the elephant collectively. And then in my fifth year, we finally became in profit and accepted as a part of the industry, at least locally. And so we weren't in profit right away. But today, our revenues are around 15 million in revenue. And that's a lot of recycling, because it's called urban mining, right? So, and everything in our industry is worth pennies. So to do about 15 million in revenue, we're talking about 50 trailer loads of garbage diverted every single day.
Oh, wow. That's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. And we're in a net positive annually, I would say 1.5 to 2 million annual profits. So we're doing well. We're doing well 10 years in.
That's awesome.
The first 5 were a roller coaster.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I say making money, I don't necessarily mean profitable, right? Because most businesses are not profitable for a while. But the difference between the thing that you guys came up with and a lot of startups out there is that you could start generating revenue, right? And you can start getting that traction without having to go in the hole and just pull on a whole bunch of debt and never not make $1 in revenue for years to come, right? So that's a really good business model to invest in and to look at, which is great. Now, when you talk about recycling, it sounds like a lot of what you're doing is actually repurposing, right? So I think when a lot of people think about recycling, I know I did, is like, okay, we're going to put the bottles here and the glass here and the plastic here and the colored glass over here. And then it's going to go to the recycling plant. It's all going to get melted down in each area. And then it's going to get turned back into the raw material that then can be reused and made into more bottles, for example. But you guys have found a way to do a little bit more repurposing. So can you give us some examples like what that's like? You give us the plastic bottle, which is cool. But what are some other things that people may not even know about that they could recycle that they should be?
Right. So That's a good question, Jeff. So the PETs was a really good success story on ours because the PET is very hard to recycle. Another is paper, right? In general, all fiber-based materials. So we're talking packaging. We're talking all the Amazon boxes that come to your door, and it's big right now because we're almost in the holiday season. So a lot of that material is the key aspect of that type of materials. It has to be water soluble, right? So when you're looking at packaging, try to buy the one that's without wax or it's poly coated or laminated, because then it can't be recycled. It's two different types of material merged into one. But what we did with a lot of the fiber products, just like my early success when I started the business, is we have the insulation company. So that's another repurpose of fibers that wouldn't be recycled otherwise, right? Because when corrugated is mixed with a magazine and the magazine has flyers within it, you can't recycle it essentially. So we repurpose it for our insulating company, and they make it into wall insulation. So that's another one. But like you said, a lot of aluminum cans, glass is still being melted and becoming, like aluminum is becoming ingots, right? The little bricks of aluminum. And so a lot of the recycling we do is still the traditional sense. But our niche is that we have a solution for practically every type of waste, right?
I'm very curious to hear what that means because, I think about electronics, lithium batteries as an example, right?
Yeah.
Hazardous waste is one thing altogether. And if you guys have solutions for that, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear what that sounds like.
Yeah. So if you want to talk hazardous waste, let's talk medical waste, right?
Okay.
Big during COVID. It's a very hard to recycle product. One, because it's hazardous. Two, it's very nitty gritty, right? There's plastics within metals, and you got your syringes with the small needles and things like that. So what we ended up doing, that was actually a big problem to solve for us. And so what we did was in North America, our solution is to burn it in North America, right? Like, what do we do with medical waste here? We burn it. We incinerate it for energy, or we're just straight up burning it into the atmosphere. So that solution obviously is not a viable solution in the long term. And so what we did was we traveled the world. How's everybody else doing it? So in Europe, as you're probably aware, Europe is well advanced in recycling than anywhere in North America. So we went to Italy. We heard had a technology, a non-burning technology that could take care of medical waste. One, denature it, so making it non-hazardous anymore. And after denaturing it, turning into a fuel source for energy. So we went there to see if this was true. Like you said, there's a lot of greenwash it, right? So we had to witness this. Myself and my whole team, we traveled to Italy. And it was in the manufacturing plant was in the small area called Turin in Italy. It's right outside of Milan. It's fashion district of the world, right? We go there. We witness this machine, and what it does, it's a friction thermal-based technology. You could literally put in glass, needles, plastics, every hazardous type of material, and with the components intact into this machine. And what it does is these blades and the friction within the blades, and there's a dehydration process within it to take away all the liquids and filter out the liquids. And when it filters out the liquid, it's water that could go down your drain at that point. Everything hazardous is denatured within the technology. And so we brought this technology to Canada now. It's about a $10 million project that we're setting up in Mississauga. It's still in the setup stage, but we're piloting material already with certain clients that are willing to do it with us. And so we're processing all hazardous waste through that, and we're repurposing it to an RDF. RDF is a type of fuel instead of using, let's say, for example, the coal plants, instead of using coal as a fuel source, they'll be using RDF, which is it's waste, it's garbage, to fuel all their manufacturing plants and everything like that. And it's a clean burning item. It doesn't emit any pollutants. I like to say it's emission free, but even us, Jeff, like me and you together, we're emitting emissions, right? Some more than others.
Animals, yeah, exactly.
Right. So But yeah, this is a true pollutant-free way of processing this material. And we're the first ones in North America to bring this technology, and we're hoping to expand this technology with our crowdfunding and the IPO process.
That's very cool. That's very cool. And these are things that people don't think about. Like, it's one of the things I love about what I do, right? I get to hear innovative ideas and technologies come to market. Years ago, I was working with a company that is a boiler manufacturer of all things. And they were creating a biomass boiler that would operate in the middle of nowhere, and it actually helped them to create a power grid. And they were looking at, sub-Saharan Africa, these areas where water is not plentiful, but they need to, grow crops. They need to have, cattle and whatnot, ranching. And so they found a way to actually take the biomass from the animals, turn that into a fuel source for a boiler. The boiler would then, use that and create the heat that would then take the emissions. It would take the water out of the emissions. So now they'd actually have water that they could create from this. And then that water became the steam source to operating power plant. So they created a closed loop system to use everything in the environment to generate clean water and electricity for a small community. And it's stuff like that that's just like, people don't realize the level of innovation and technology. And whenever people think about startups and they think about technology, what do they think about? They think about Google, or they think about AI, they think about code-based stuff and software. And what you guys are doing is a dirty job, first and foremost. I know it's not clean, but it's so very, very necessary, vital to longevity of societies, longevity, of our planet in general. I mean, it's just really cool that you guys have found a solution to this kind of problem that's been around for a long time. And it's relatively easy to understand, but still a very innovative idea.
Right. Exactly. No. And Jeff, this is why we're doing this, right? So our dream here is one day get entire cities certified zero waste to landfill. And we could do it. In Italy, they are doing that. It's not like we're far-fetched and it's something new that we're just testing out. No, this has been implemented. We're just behind. We're behind the rest of the world in North America in that aspect. And that's why, and the biggest hurdle we're having is with the lobbyists from waste management companies saying, hey, this is the solution, and not hearing what the rest of the world is doing, right? And it's a hazard. It's a hazard to have that, right? So, and I appreciate this, that we're on your podcast here, spreading that message. And this has now become like my life mission.
I love that.
So it's good. It excites me, and I'm fortunate to do something that excites me every day.
Yeah, well, I think you wouldn't be doing it if it didn't excite you. But and it's a great thing to be able to be in a business you're passionate about. It's another great thing to be in a business that you're passionate about that also makes money. And it's even better to be in a business that you're passionate about that makes money, makes other people money, and does good things in the world at the same time, right? So we call, in some cases, we call that impact investing, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things, just a thought for you, when it comes down to this, you're absolutely right. Dealing with lobbyists, dealing with all of that is really challenging, but there are initiatives going on in a number of cities to become clean tech cities, smart cities, things like that, right? And one of the things that I've done in the past is working with the people who chair those committees or chair those initiatives. And they're the ones that their well-being, their payroll, their whatever you will look at is not based off how much lobbying money they can get, but actually it's based off the impact that they can make, right? And if they can come up with some of those initiatives and they get funding for it, right? So the governments will fund it, the cities, the counties, states, federal government will even fund these things as grants to try and introduce these initiatives. And so sometimes it is really difficult because you are, in a sense, trying to, the acronym we use in the Navy was whenever a carrier needs to turn around, it's not like it turns on a dime, right? It takes tens of miles to turn a carrier around if it's going full steam ahead. And so as a result, when you look at an industry, you're trying to shift the paradigm of an industry, it's like that, right? And so you kind of have to do it slowly and piece by piece, but you look for those bright spots, those initiatives, those cities, those people are trying to make a difference, and partnering with them, I think, is a really good way for you guys to try and figure that out. I know you're already working on some of that stuff, but it is challenging to change the paradigm of an industry.
It is, and I love the analogy that you gave there. I'm actually going to use that.
Yeah.
That was great. And that's exactly it. We know this is going to take time, but every day, we're trying to move it's the status quo forward, right? We're trying to change that status quo. So let's see. Then with the investors behind us, I don't think anything could really stop us. We just need the public and the consumer to be aware that this is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, it is one of those challenging things, right? Because humans are creatures of habit. And if I'm being honest, most people are lazy, right? Like they're really lazy. So what's somebody going to do? They're going to open up their Amazon box. They're going to throw in the same bin they've been throwing it in forever. And changing a habit for an individual is challenging at best, right? But I know that it is possible. And if you can convince somebody to do that, or if you can find a way to make it just as easy for them, right? Then that's another way you can really help move the needle on this. But I'll tell you, changing human nature is challenging, to say the least.
That is the biggest challenge in recycling, is to change that mindset and to ask them to sort and everything. So that's how we started. And that's more so another reason why we got into this new type of technology here, the thermal base, because you could mix everything and it still will be recycled and repurposed and used to something else, right? It's to solve that issue right there. And recycling is still the first line of defense because it there's no emissions whatsoever, and it's repurposed into something that is used right away. Right. And it's called urban mining. So that's our first line of defense, right? Urban mine what's the valuable and share the profits from it. The second line of defense for our lazy folks that we're talking about that do not want to sort, that do not believe in recycling for whatever reason, because all of a sudden climate change is like a political issue for whatever reason they don't like to believe in it. There's a solution for that too with this new technology that we're putting on board here for that reason exactly, right? One is for the hazardous waste, for the non-recyclables, and two is for whoever does not want to recycle at all. So there's a solution for everything.
I got to ask you then, because here's something that's near and dear to my heart. I like drinking out of straws, right? And I absolutely hate paper straws. Can you guys take regular plastic straws and turn them into something useful so it doesn't fill the landfill like people are talking about?
I agree with you. I hate those straws. I just take the lid off now and like drink it like a cup because I hate those straws so much. But I agree that I don't know really, like that was a part of our, at least in Canada, a plastic ban that we did here. But it makes no sense because there's it's LDPE and some straws are PP. Both are very recyclable. I understand that they weren't being, a lot of the straws weren't being sent for recycling, of course, because that's one of the biggest challenges we face, but they are very recyclable items.
Right.
And this ban didn't apply to the whole world. So, and it didn't apply to that material itself. So as importing countries, you're never going to get away from it. So I don't understand the whole concept behind it, but it was kind of to show that I guess they're trying to do something. Yeah. But it's very recyclable, to answer your question. And what happens with PP, we repalletize it so it could become more PP products.
PP, what do you mean by that?
Polypropylene.
Polypropylene, okay.
Right? So polypropylene is mostly what the straws would be made out of. It's a very recyclable item. And right now what we do in our plant with PP is we send it to a garbage bag manufacturer. He makes garbage bags out of the PP.
Perfect.
Right? So that's always been around for a long time, even well before the ban. So for whatever reason, they didn't like straws and got rid of them, made of fiber base. And the fiber base, yes, it's still very recyclable, but is now the fiber straw being recycled? It's the same problem. It's still going to landfill, right? Because the lid is plastic. You're putting a fiber. So I don't get it. But we have a solution with that technology that we're bringing. It's called a waste converter. So it converts waste into RDF, which is fuel. And that's a solution for the problem just like that. But the fiber straw is a disaster of an invention. Like it doesn't work.
I'm glad we're on the same page on that one. Yeah, it's funny. Like governments, and I worked in the Navy, and I tell this story to people every now and then, is that when I was in the Navy, I saw so much waste on the money side of things, right? We'd spend thousands of dollars to buy a nut or a bolt or whatever that you could have got at the hardware store a heck of a lot cheaper. And so you're charging taxpayer dollars exorbitant amounts just to do the same thing that you could have done easily. But they say that there's more controls in place, right? And that's fine.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. We saw so much waste. I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go start a new company once I get out, just manufacturing the exact same thing and then selling it back to the military at half the price and save everybody money and make a lot of money in the process. Turns out you have to change a paradigm. You have to change a mindset. You have to get a DoD contracting. It's not an easy thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But in the military and in the government in general, what I find that their idea of innovation is putting lipstick on a pig, right? And in other words, trying to make something really ugly look pretty by doing something that's not actually useful at all, right?
Right.
And that's what I felt like this initiative was all about. And, there's so many other solutions. There are innovative ideas and innovative ways to fix problems that don't degrade and sacrifice, whether it's quality of life, our creature comforts. I mean, that's the other problem, right? If you impede somebody's life that has a good lifestyle already and you make it more difficult or less appealing, less attractive for them, the adoption is going to be challenging, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if all of a sudden they put a ban on smartphones and everybody had to go back to a flip phone, right?
Right.
The outcry would be disastrous. Even though the phone could still technically do all the things, you just have to have a number pad. Like no one would want that anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so, I like the idea that you can actually take the things that people are using and doing right now and still make an impact and do good and make money doing it in the process, just by maybe shifting and being a little bit more innovative on the other side of it.
Exactly. And then you're absolutely right on that. Remember, we're a disposable, convenience-based society now. Everything has to be easy and disposable, one use, which is bad, but we have to adopt, right? We can't change the mindset of everybody. It's not gonna happen, right? It's not gonna happen unless it's a pandemic and the government mandates something, right? Which, right, that's a whole different subject. But
yep,
right.
Yeah. Once we're told we have to change everything, that puts. But I mean, people aren't going to opt for going back to 3 or 4 day delivery from Amazon when they're getting it today, right? Just
That's
because, hey, we're going to save billions of dollars in fuel or emissions. No one cares, right?
Nobody cares.
It doesn't impact them today, whereas the delayed shipping does, right?
That's right.
And so
that's right.
That's the challenge we've written into.
No, and as a company, as Soul Recycling, like we understand that, and we everything that we bring on board, we don't try to overcomplicate the process. We try to have the solution in house to keep their process the same. And once we receive the material, we do what we have to do with it, right? So, and being a young company, we're very flexible like that. Like our other companies, like waste companies, are 100 years old. They can't pivot like we can.
Yeah.
Right. So any new technologies that come in, we're first on it. Like this technology from Italy is actually not even new. It's a 20-year-old technology, but it's new for us.
Right.
And that's, we're very flexible in that aspect. And you're absolutely right. And we're a convenience-based disposable economy. And we we know that as a company, as our team, we know that our solutions are based around that.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Simar, what's next for you guys? What are you guys trying to achieve over there at Soul Recycling? And then how do people find you?
Yep. Well, our website is www.soulrecycling.com, where there's also a 1-800 toll-free number that they contact us. And our next mission is to have countries that are zero waste to landfill. And that's our overall mission here, is to eliminate landfills in total. We're not these climate activist guys. We have a feasible solution to dig in and that's it. We understand digging a hole in the ground is not the right way of doing it. And that's it. We're trying to solve that problem. We should be using our land for more useful things.
And you guys are looking to go in public soon, it sounds like, too.
Yep. So part of our IPO process is to bring this technology nationally and to North America wide. Very
cool. Awesome. Samar, thanks so much for being here today. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and getting to learn a little bit more about your company. It's been wonderful. For everybody out there that's watching, please make sure you subscribe, share, like this, and then put it out there on the socials if you guys like this idea, because what they're building over there, solar recycling, is something that we're all going to benefit from for generations to come. So let's help them get the word out there. So again, Simar, thanks so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Take care, everyone.